Any signs of a solution, Foreign Secretary? Is a smile an indication of a deal in the offing? Are you here just to try and start trouble?
Brexit.
All hell has broken loose.
Westminster's biggest test in living memory.
The noes to the left, 432.
As Theresa May tries to steer her deal through Parliament with no majority.
If we stick together, we can get a deal that delivers for Britain.
We do not know what they want. They do not know themselves what they really want.
I'm the BBC's political editor, and I've been behind the scenes during an extraordinary 9 months.
This is, I think, the worst example of ill discipline in British political history.
No one's playing by the traditional rules in there.
That's not how politics is meant to work. On the inside, with opposing MPs struggling to do the right thing for their country.
You're facing a moment of national humiliation.
Their party.
The hardline right wing are now running the Conservative Party from top to toe.
And of course themselves.
The right thing to do, I think, is to vote today.
As our political system hits breaking point.
Have you ever known anything like this?
No, I haven't.
It's all bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, let's all be poor.
Whichever way people stand on this, they all think this is a farce.
This is the inside story of a battle in Parliament that has changed our politics and our country forever.
So damn simple, I don't think so. We're talking Brexit, the cabinet in with the Prime Minister trying to agree on Britain's line.
Gosh, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall at that?
Absolutely.
So this is the Prime Minister's humble country cottage. The Prime Minister is holed up in there with their cabinet, and I don't think she's going to let them out without signing up to something. We are now more than 2 years after the referendum. We're meant to be out in March. And it seems extraordinary that they're only having these conversations really now. Hello.
We're from Germany, very interested in British politics. So, okay, checkers isn't far from here, and okay, today, quite interesting, obviously.
Well, this is one of the strangest things that happens in British politics, so there you go.
Great,
okay, no problem. Right, here we go. 20?
Yeah.
They just sent it through, look, the actual deal. It's the real thing. Blah-de-blah. Distinct benefits UK, EU. And the Brexiteers have sucked up a lot. They've really sucked up a lot, but I don't know if they can agree with that. She actually only shared the final details with cabinet ministers late yesterday. You know, nearly 30 of them, 26 people who are making really, really big decisions on all of our behalves, and they only got all the information they've got late last night. To outside observers, you've got to think, is that a very good way of making decisions?
Well, in detailed discussions today, the Cabinet has agreed our collective position on the future of our negotiations with the EU. This is a deal that delivers on Brexit, but it does so in a way that ensures that we can build that bright future for Britain.
So was today the day that she faced down her reluctant Brexiteers? Right now, we just don't know if they rolled over or are guarding their anger for another day. Hello, it's Laura, how are you? So what happened? Oh, really? So apparently at the start of the meeting, Prime Minister kind of said, look, this is my deal and we all have to back it, and I hope I can count on all of you. Sounds like she was playing head teacher. Right, let's try and Brexiteer. Person you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Yeah, because they got done over. David Davis actually turned his phone off altogether. So far, the only people tonight who are answering their phones are former Remainers. That probably tells you all you need to know.
Within the past few minutes, the Brexit Secretary David Davis has resigned from the government.
We think Boris Johnson might quit as well. You have two of the most senior people in government saying the Brexit policy doesn't add up to much. Things start to get very tricky.
He's gone.
He's gone. In the last few minutes, after warnings from friends in the last half hour or so that he might quit, Downing Street has actually confirmed that he has. Forgive me, that's one of his team on the phone. I'm just going to pass that to my colleague who perhaps can have a chat with him and see what the reasoning is. Hello.
Hello. I'm sorry. Hi.
That's quite all right. You okay?
Did you have any coffee that way?
I'm sure we can get you some. Yeah.
I've just been pummeled by pest. He kept corpsing. He kept laughing, which I thought was Robert. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was an education as always.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
See you later.
Yeah. He kept
laughing
breaking into gales of laughter. You know, it just seemed to me to be.
Is he laughing at you or with you? I think you have to understand about Boris Johnson is he really wants to be loved, and actually underneath it all, he's quite shy. But we all know someone like that, right? We all know someone who plays the clown because they don't want to be themselves.
My duty now is to make the case for freedom.
Boris Johnson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. How far is Boris Johnson going to be honest about what he really wants, which is to move him to number 10 because he thinks he can do a better job than Theresa May? And does he really have the guts to be open about that? Or is he going to deny it? We're going to go downstairs.
So we're being recorded.
Here we are. Bear in mind, also, this isn't going to go out for ages. Do you want to see? People look at what you're doing and just think, what are you up to? Is this clearly about your own ambition?
Well, if that was the case, I would have stayed in the cabinet and you know, hung on and. But you know, I genuinely don't feel I have a choice.
Given how you were the most prominent face in the Brexit campaign, do you feel responsible for the...
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Put it this way, I certainly think that the role I played in the campaign means that I have a complete duty to try to argue for what I believe in.
Someone said to me, you're like a child who keeps asking for a pony.
I never had a pony.
I've got to be hard-headed and practical about this. We had to make what is a compromise, but is a positive in terms of the benefits that it gives us.
Theresa May has tried to come up with a Brexit that doesn't create big disruption in the economy. But for many people in the Tory party, whether they were Leave or Remain, is kind of half in, half out. It's a bad compromise. And because Theresa May doesn't have a majority in Parliament, tiny groups of MPs can throw their weight around.
What do we want? People's vote. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? People's vote. When do we want it?
They just believe that Brexit was a historic mistake.
Hello, good morning. Jack Bruce-Mark, how do you do?
From the Brexiteer side, you have a committed group of about 60 MPs who say if Theresa May doesn't do what they want, they'll pull their support.
Order. Colleagues, a very good afternoon and welcome to this ERG meeting. It's brilliant to see you here. The first thing I need to do is send apologies from our chairman. Jacob has a protest outside his private home today. The anarchists were good enough to give him the start and finish time, but we should be grateful for that courtesy.
The European Research Group, they're like Begbie from Trainspotting. Politically ruthless. They'll do almost anything to get their project through.
I think it's time to get a bit tougher. It's time to abandon the Chequers proposals. If it's not done, we're in a shambles.
How much are you willing to do to keep trying to get your way?
Some things really matter, and democratic control of political power really matters. We've ended up with a good number of colleagues very clear that they will vote against Chequers. How can you vote for it?
Even if that might mean chaos?
Well, yeah.
You've got so many different factions. So there's one group who definitely want a second referendum. You've got another group who definitely want a hard Brexit. And then us. So that's
who just definitely want it all to go away.
The Brexit Delivery Group, which is led by Simon Hart, represent most MPs in the Tory party.
You know, we're getting fairly hacked off, with all we hear is a sort of steady stream of MPs, you know, folding their arms and saying we could do it better. On the one side, there's 30 Remain rebels who threaten to vote down the PM if she goes too far. And on the other side, we've got 30-plus Brexit rebels who threaten to vote down the PM if she doesn't go far enough. The room to manoeuvre is this wide.
There's an atmosphere in politics where nobody wants to compromise, nobody really wants to work together, apart from with the small group that agrees with them. But this whole deal, getting it done with Brussels and then getting it through Parliament, hinges on people being prepared to budge. There's that old Margaret Thatcher quote, the danger of being in the middle of the road is you get knocked by traffic from both sides. And Theresa May's job is to see if she can manage to escape the traffic. Thanks, sir.
Free stickers! Unlike Brexit, which is going to cost a fortune!
Party conferences are strange goldfish bowls where people who love politics get together. And parties also sometimes have to make some decisions.
Right, here we go. I've long thought that Brexit is a complete disaster. And what's the only way out of that? Well, the only way I can see is that you put a deal back to the people.
Can you hear us, Jeremy Corbyn? Listen to us. Give us a people's vote.
Party leadership have been very reluctant to do what the majority of Labour Party members do, which is try to stop Brexit somehow. Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell don't really want to stop Brexit, but there's huge pressure on them in their party to do so.
If the Prime Minister returns with a deal that does not meet our tests, we will vote against her deal. We must have other options. That must include campaigning for a public vote.
Sir Keir Starmer has just formalised what's been pretty clear for a long time, that unless something very strange happens, Labour is not going to vote for the Brexit deal, if there is one. And that means one big thing for our listeners. The chances of this process imploding in Parliament have just gone up. Tory conference might be very, very bumpy, because a big chunk of Theresa May's own party hate her Brexit deal. And there's now a really, really concerted campaign to try to kill it off.
Away with the doom and gloom mongers. We can do it on our own, we can do it better.
I will argue passionately we need to seek the further consent of the people.
If Boris Johnson is the court jester, this is the Tory court. So how could he not come and do a turn?
Instead of reasserting our ability to make our laws, the UK will be effectively paraded in manacles down the Rue de la Loi like karatekas. It is a constitutional outrage.
Are you going first?
Yes.
Right, can we just plug you
Yeah,
in
of course.
your mic?
Yeah, sure. Have we checked the Prime Minister's mic?
Yeah.
She's going to hate it. I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to be like paved all round.
Are we ready to go?
Theresa May takes the responsibility she has massively seriously, and she carries it heavily. She doesn't do small talk. She doesn't want to gossip. She wants to talk about things that matter. Hello. Hi, how are you doing? No, not at all. How are you doing?
Mistake wearing a dress again today.
I know, I did the same. So
I have to adjust mine and adjust the...
It's the dropping it down moment.
Adjust it at the top as well. Okay, that's fine, I'll do it.
Yeah. All right, is everybody happy? Yep. Yep. Okay. Firstly, Prime Minister, did you watch Boris Johnson's speech this afternoon?
No, this afternoon I've been meeting activists, I've been talking to people about the conference, and I've been seeing a party that is in really good heart.
Well, people were certainly in good heart in the Boris Johnson speech. More than 1,000 people cheered him for suggesting, demanding that you drop your Chequers compromise plan.
Well, there are one or two things that Boris said that I am cross about.
Theresa May's a very controlled person, so for her to admit, yeah, that makes me quite cross, it's probably what you or me would say. I'm totally, utterly, completely incandescent. I can't even talk to you right now, I'm so angry.
Leadership is doing what you believe to be right and having the courage and determination to see it through. And that is the approach I have taken on Brexit. If we stick together and hold our nerve, I know we can get a deal that delivers for Britain.
Theresa May and her advisors and the best brains in Whitehall have worked on this for a long, long time. She's done her homework, they've done the research, and there's no way she's going to budge from it unless she absolutely has to.
My hope was that today we will have concrete solution on the table, but it looks like it will not be a deal today.
The problem is there is no clear proposal from UK side, and today we do not know what they want. They do not know themselves what they really want.
To a lot of people in Brussels, what Britain has decided to do is crackers. For them, it's like watching your relative, who always seemed to be the boring, sensible and important one, and then they're suddenly the one who goes completely off the rails and starts drinking a bottle of vodka every night and going out till 4 in the morning. They don't get it.
Basically, the debate is now concentrating on this issue of the Irish border.
There is still the question of the Northern Irish backstop, but I believe everybody around the table wants to get a deal, and now is the time to make it happen.
The European Union want a totally cast-iron, hardcore guarantee from the UK that whatever happens, there won't be a hard border on the island of Ireland. But the backstop that the EU came up with essentially carves off Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. For the DUP, whose support Theresa May needs, that is not acceptable at all.
Hi, come in.
Hello. Hello. But some people on her side would say that you're meant to be her allies and that you've not been willing to compromise at all.
One red line we have had is that you can't divide up the United Kingdom. Well, I'm afraid if I'm intransigent on that, I plead guilty to that because I'm a unionist first and foremost, and I will never apologise for holding firm on the union.
Do you feel she's actually had a plan?
I am not entirely sure. It's very hard to know what she's thinking. When you talk to her about what action are you going to take, if the European Union say no to your demands, she just refuses to engage with that. She just, well, I believe they will understand when we get to that point what is needed to be done. I'm not sure that there's been a great strategy throughout all of this.
Chancellor, are there any signs of progress? Hello? Thumbs up if there's a sign of a deal?
Officials are in the tunnel trying to find their way around the obstacles we know have been there forever.
Is a smile an indication of a deal in the offing?
This is a Theresa May characteristic. You keep your plans tight, 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 and only at the last minute do you bring people into the circle. But everybody's so desperate for information because it matters so much.
You optimistic about a deal? Any signs of a solution, Secretary of State?
When I started working in this world, sure, things happened that you didn't expect, but really, the foundations of what was going on were never going to really move.
That referendum wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of something new.
This time, our political system doesn't have the answers to the period that we're living through.
We feel very strongly about delivering on the vote of 17.4 million people. No, I have difference of opinion with her on policy, but I think the Prime Minister is doing an incredibly difficult job, very well and very dutifully.
We want our country back! We will take responsibility and we will sort out this mess with a people's vote.
The
alternatives for failing to deliver are pretty profound. We can't get this wrong.
I think everyone in Westminster is very, very worried.
Tonight at 10, after many months of negotiating, London and Brussels have produced a draft agreement on Brexit.
This is a decisive step which enables us to move on and finalise the deal in the days ahead. And I firmly believe, with my head and my heart, that this is a decision which is in the best interests of our entire United Kingdom.
You tell me when, I'll take my cue from you, yeah? So her deal is on. A pact has been sealed that could determine her future, the government's future, and of course, all of ours. You get it? Well done. Right, we need to get out of the way.
I'm getting told right now on WhatsApp the scene in Central Lobby is very interesting.
It breaches the red line in having differences between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom.
There are fears the UK-wide backstop might see us trapped in the EU forever.
Theresa May has said many things. Sometimes what she says and what she does do not match.
That really gives you a sense of the mood in here. It's not a good situation for the Prime Minister.
People who are cross on both sides, this is their moment of maximum leverage to be professionally cross about the outrage of the deal.
This miserable mockery of a deal is nothing less than a con on the British people.
Seems to be as bad as everybody feared. I feel pretty devastated, actually.
Mr. Speaker, what we agreed yesterday was not the final deal. It is a draft treaty. It's not. It is a draft treaty that means that we will leave the EU in a smooth and orderly way on the 29th of March 2019.
In politics, you need to be able to explain to voters why you're doing what you're doing. But she sold her deal appallingly.
The government, Mr. Speaker, is in chaos. Their deal risks leaving the country in an indefinite halfway house without a real say.
On all sides, there is not support for this deal.
The stark reality, Prime Minister, is that it was dead on arrival at St Tommy's before you stood up.
She has this extraordinary ability to stand there and take it and not really lose her temper. She doesn't give up.
So, Mr. Speaker, the choice is clear. We can choose to leave with no deal. We can risk no Brexit at all. Or we can choose...
I think there are many people in the Conservative Party, not just in Parliament, but in the country at large, who feel that her service now should come to an end. There seems to be a certain interest in today's proceedings.
In order to unseat Theresa May, to shove her out, what Tory MPs have to do is get 48 of their colleagues to write a letter to say whether or not there should be a leadership contest.
What we need is a leader who will say to the European Union, it is impossible to agree to a perpetual customs union.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's your right a bit.
I'm good at moving to the right.
Thank you.
I think what annoyed me the most is the glee with which some colleagues are doing this. Some sort of foaming at the mouth. It's almost like a political porn movie of the day or something, and I find that really quite scary.
They will stop at nothing, these people. This is a shocking way to carry on in the face of the biggest decision that we've made since the Second World War.
All your cameras will break if you carry on taking pictures of me. Anyway, thank you all very much.
I just don't think it's responsible to try changing the Prime Minister at this moment. She's a human being, trying to do the best she can, and surrounded by this circus.
Party, it is therefore entirely constitutional, and dare I say to Newsnight, coup is the wrong word.
It's an amazing experience to be there in front of the cameras, because it's quite intimidating to see so many people sticking a camera at your face, but that's history, I suppose.
From Theresa May in the next few minutes.
If an overwhelming number of letters has already gone in, she might be about to resign. Here we go.
Leadership is about making the right decisions, not taking the easy decisions. As Prime Minister, my job is to get the best deal for Britain, and that's exactly what I am focused on doing.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted. That was the usual carry-on regardless speech. I think the Prime Minister's starting to look really detached from the reality of what's going on in Parliament and the Conservative Party. Hello. You're a hero. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you telling me. Cheers. Cheers. Bye. So that's during her speech. People have recalled me to say the letters are going in. So I would have thought confidence vote next week.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I will stop the picture, yes, of course.
It's 5 days now since Jacob Rees-Mogg and Steve Baker stormed out of St Stephen's entrance at the House of Commons demanding a vote of no confidence in Theresa May. They've all put their letters in, but not enough other people have.
It's a bit of a humiliation, isn't it?
I think this is exaggerated language.
Doesn't it have more of the sort of Dad's Army feel about it?
I've always admired Captain Mannering.
They have not been able to get their troops out at a moment when it really, really mattered. And there are lots of questions about whether the all-powerful Eurosceptics really have all the power that they thought they had. Do you feel a bit silly now? Because a couple of days ago, well, you walked out of St Stephen's entrance proclaiming a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, and it hasn't materialised.
Well, the letters haven't come in, so it hasn't gone as I hoped it would. Do you know, frankly, I don't mind. If people talk about me being silly, rather than about what Downing Street wants them to be talking about, that's fine.
I think it also tells you there is still no sign of the people who want the job actually making a public move to try to force her out with their name on it. There is one thing that you could do. I mean, if you really think it's this bad and there is another way...
I tried resigning. I did resign.
Well, you resigned, but you could run.
No. My objective is to change this policy. This is about Brexit and...
yeah, but it's also about who's in charge of Brexit, isn't it?
Let us see what happens in the next few weeks and months.
One of the features of this whole process has been her colleagues making public, devastating criticisms of Theresa May, but none of them have actually had the bottle to come forward and say, yeah, choose me. Because all of the people who want to do her job don't really want to be the people to clear up all of this tangle. And so she's still there.
Before Christmas, MPs will vote on this deal. It will be one of the most significant votes that Parliament has held for many years. And I will make the case for this deal with all my heart.
I mean, first and foremost, it's the Prime Minister's job to get this deal through. But the second most important person helping her get it through, whose job it is explicitly, is the Chief Whip, Julian Smith. And he's probably got the hardest job of any Chief Whip in decades.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good weekend? Excellent.
Julian Smith always seems to be quite wily, but he keeps quite a low profile.
The big one is about 2 weeks off. I think if it was possible to cancel social engagement and anything other than complete focus on this task, I'd appreciate it. Our biggest priority has to be how do we make sure that all of the specific issues that colleagues have are addressed, and perhaps we could just talk a little bit about those issues.
I think their concern is still just the backstop, is the resounding noise from colleagues that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Although there are other things for some colleagues. I'm afraid I'm going to echo the same theme. It is the backstop, so there's still some work to be done there.
Yeah.
You know, you were being very calm and rational, but people are hot-headed here. People are cross, they're angry. Some of them are out for themselves.
Some of the behaviour from a small number of my colleagues has heightened the more determined I am to make sure that I support a Prime Minister who is genuinely just trying to take a practical route. I've observed her sitting around the Cabinet table in the subcommittees with people that are trying to destabilise her at the moment. But this will be the only deal. We've spent 2 years negotiating it. It's not perfect, but when it comes to it and when they have to make the decision, I believe MPs will vote for it.
Thank you all for coming. It's very good to see such a fine turnout. Bernard Jenkins is going to hand out a sheet that we can all use out and about We want to know what we ought to be saying on the media, what we ought to be saying to our constituents on what is wrong with the deal as it stands.
The Irish border issue has been blown out of all proportion precisely in order to trap us. If once we're in the backstop we can only escape by leave of the European Union, we'll be in it forever. I'm afraid we are in the midst of a huge battle for our democracy against the combined might of the state and the Conservative Party again.
I mean, it's never-ending. It's like a never-ending nightmare.
Well, I think the trouble is that everybody's in such an entrenched position that no matter how much time is bought, I don't think very much changes.
My own personal view is that we need the informed consent of the public. The government should pivot to the deal subject to a people's vote. You don't come into politics to rebel against the party that's given you the opportunity to be a member of this House. But on something of such importance, you have to do with what you think is right for the country. I mean, this is verging on a conscience issue, actually.
The Prime Minister, she has never reached out to build a genuine consensus. She went into the negotiation on her terms, and then she's come back to the House to try to negotiate it with the House of Commons. It is a situation, I'm afraid to say, of her own making.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Almost every moment of every day right now, you're just reminded this is why she had the election in 2017. She called that election so that she would have more friends on her side in Parliament, so that she would be able to get Brexit through. But they bodged the campaign and she actually lost her majority. So this one enormous gamble, which went against her character, actually was an enormous act of self-sabotage. And every time she walks into Downing Street, she must just wonder to herself, what on earth was I thinking?
Michael Gove joins us in the studio. Is the vote definitely 100% going to happen?
Yes, the vote is going ahead.
Hi, how are you doing? Crikey, okay, they're pulling the vote. Is that definite? Unbelievable.
Statement of half three.
Get it.
It's not 100% confirmed, but
we're going with it.
90% certain that it's right.
The Prime Minister was telling us, oh, this is the best deal, this is the only deal. So for them suddenly to say, actually, we're not going to do it, is extraordinary. Everybody, it's a fun morning. Yeah, exactly, just a bit. That's it. You checking your email, Alan?
Are you 100% sure it's been called?
3 sources have told me that it is.
Oh.
It would be great to be the government minister who has to go on, well, actually, the whole thing is falling apart in front of your eyes, and you happen to be the person on TV who then has to defend it, even though you don't know what it is.
Going on here.
I've listened very carefully to what has been said in this chamber and out of it. As a result, if we went ahead and held the vote tomorrow, the deal would be rejected by a significant margin.
We've wasted weeks now listening to, quite frankly, a lot of rubbish. I mean, I have to say that we're facing a moment almost of national humiliation. It is a shambles from beginning to end.
What do we want? Give us Brexit now!
Yeah, let's all be poorer!
It's definitely a lively debate going on out here, as you can see. Whichever way people stand on this, they all think this is just taking the mick. You know, this is a farce. You know, people are just like, what is she playing at? You're saying you want this deal, but you're too scared to put it to us. You know, I mean, madness.
What the Prime Minister now seems to be doing is just pushing this out to January in the hope that pressure will be so great on us or we'll vote for it. I'm afraid she's going to be very much mistaken. I mean, she's trying to achieve survival as Prime Minister, but I don't think it's going to work.
I wish my father was here to see this.
Jacob, you got that? What on earth?
It's all bonkers, isn't it?
Well, it's completely bonkers.
Have you ever known anything like this?
No, I haven't.
But, she has clearly lost the confidence of the House of Commons. And normally that would lead to a Prime Minister resigning.
And do you think after today many more of your colleagues will come round to that view?
My efforts a few weeks ago didn't work, so I've got to be quite careful about predicting what will happen.
Who's better at counting, you or the Chief Whip?
I know that he told the Prime Minister how bad the figures were for her.
When?
Ages ago. Before I said she had to go.
How do you know that?
I can't tell you, but I do know that.
So what, she just didn't want to listen?
She didn't. The Prime Minister did not listen to her chief whip.
Theresa May seizes on a course of action, and then once she's on it, she'll just stick to it. But there's no point sticking your fingers in your ears when other people are turning up the music louder and louder and louder, and then you suddenly take your fingers out and you go, oh, crikey, this has all gone a bit wrong, isn't it?
It is 18 minutes to 8, and we have heard literally in the last few minutes that the magic 48 letters has been reached.
Here we go.
The Prime Minister is sweeping down to Parliament for one of the most important days of her career. She has 9 hours from now to persuade her colleagues that she is the person to lead the country and has earned the right to keep her job.
All hell has broken loose.
The Prime Minister's supporters are now all out in force trying to grab control of the story. It's a power struggle.
Can I do these guys right if you will? Can I book with them?
Obsessed, single-minded, nothing else matters to them except leaving the EU on their terms.
And having the vote now, I simply ask the question, why? For what purpose?
There's members of the public standing around thinking, what on earth is going on? You know, it's like a pantomime with no jokes.
For or against Theresa May?
For. Or against lunacy, whichever way you look at it. How does this look to people who are expecting us to deliver the most complicated negotiation of all time? Makes us look like we're involved in some kind of student debating society. The message it sends, I think, is ridiculous.
The result of the ballot held this evening, the Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
I'm pleased to have received the backing of my colleagues in tonight's ballot. Whilst I'm grateful for that support, a significant number of colleagues did cast a vote against me, and I've listened to what they said.
The ultra-Brexiteers have failed again. She has spent the day openly having to fight her own party, and tonight she's got less power, less authority, and no workable Brexit policy. So, you know, well done, chaps. That worked really well for everybody.
What a silly game! It's all right for the rest of you, all right for us.
People are texting in. The screen is going mad here, saying, the Tories are driving me mad, and I'm a Tory voter.
People disagree about what is best for our country. That is the nature of democracy. It's messy.
Europe, we're their biggest cash cow. The best thing that we can do now is get straight out.
So less than 24 hours ago, a third of Theresa May's MPs tried to get rid of her. And now here we are, lunchtime the next day, and she's back in Brussels, pleading to get a change to the agreement she's reached with the European Union. You just have to wonder what it must feel like, right? You've got 27 pairs of eyes from other countries all looking at her. Must be very, very lonely. I'm not sure that Theresa May would be very pleased if we actually sat in her chair. No, not even for the family album.
Write a note inside them.
What would you write?
Good luck.
Good luck.
Best of British.
No, I just said that we are ready to help. We are ready to help.
And I know the concerns there are in the House of Commons about this issue of the backstop, and what I'll be talking to European leaders about here today is about what I think is we need to get this deal over the line.
There's precious little chance at this stage that the EU is going to do anything substantial to help Theresa May out, because from their point of view, it's a legal agreement that has been reached after more than 18 months of work by officials, and it was also reached on the basis that Theresa May felt she'd be able to get it through Parliament. It was Theresa May's judgment that it would fly. So why should they trust what she says the next time?
Today, Prime Minister May informed the leaders about the difficulties with ratifying the deal and asked for further assurances. The European Council reconfirms it is not open for renegotiation.
She's so angry. You can tell she's so cross. I've never seen two leaders like remonstrate and have a row like that before. Especially not Theresa May. I mean, she never gives anything away. She kept her job because she promised her colleagues she would be able to get something out of the EU today. And she's going to go home with nothing. But then, what was she meant to do? To compromise towards a softer Brexit, then risk being taken out by the Eurosceptics? Or come here and say, oh, actually, after 2 years, I now want a cleaner Brexit. And then when she gets home, have a kind of avalanche coming from the other way. You know, that's why it is an almost impossible situation.
The EU are playing pretty hardball. I'm knackered, dealing with colleagues 24/7, frustrated with the fact that people don't see the light as clearly as I do.
Everybody was expecting to vote on that day, and it was only almost at the last minute that the Prime Minister pulled it. When did you realise it couldn't go ahead that day? I mean, it's your job to deliver the numbers.
My job is to provide the Prime Minister with advice, and I knew there was a problem with this backstop for a long time.
How are you going to get people on side, though?
Well, as you're aware, discipline is not as good as it should be. This is, I think, the worst example of ill discipline in cabinet in British political history. But I think people have actually begun to realise that the deal may not be perfect, but is a good deal. I'm extremely confident that we'll get this withdrawal agreement over the line.
Two and a half years since the EU referendum, and MPs are within a few hours of getting their big opportunity to vote on the Brexit agreement.
Mr Davies, good morning. Are you really going to go ahead with what might end up collapsing the government?
Why should it collapse the government? My strong sense is we've got a very, very united vote coming in this evening for us. Prime Minister pulled the vote just over 5 weeks ago, saying that she was going to get changes, and she hasn't got any. And that's why I think she's going to face such difficulty on the vote tonight.
I'll be voting against the deal. I cannot vote for something that I know full well is going to make my constituents poorer.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you.
You've got to be responsible. And you've also got to be in a position where you say to your children and your grandchildren, with complete pride, this is what I did.
Do you think you'll be able to vote with us? Brilliant. That's a relief. Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye-bye. We think what's right is to vote this deal down hard, and I think we'll be glad in a few years that we took a stand today for the right deal for our country.
As members of Parliament, we have a duty to serve not our own self-interest nor that of our parties, but the people we were elected to represent. And if we back this deal tonight, we can show the people that their voices have been heard, that our politics can and does deliver. And I commend this motion to the House.
Right, here we go. I cannot think of another occasion when a Prime Minister has gone ahead with a vote that they know they're going to lose. But she's boxed in now. She has to tear the plaster off and find out what's really underneath.
Order! Order. The ayes to the right, 202. The noes to the left, 432.
Wow. That's amazing. It's a feat of 230. Wow. Because you can hear people going, that is so much worse than they thought.
It is clear that the House does not support this deal, but tonight's vote tells us nothing about what it does support.
There was quite a lot of serious faces because I think people realised the magnitude of what they were doing here.
This is not normal politics, but to be positive, I think this is politics working. I'm quite proud of this Parliament this evening because it's made an analysis that this deal is not in the best interest of the country, and it's standing firm.
When we have had other referenda, either Parliament mirrored the public or the public mirrored Parliament, and the kind of establishment basically got its way. And in 2016, that mirror cracked. And that two-way bargain, where Parliament's kind of reflecting where most people are, that went sour. The public set Parliament a task, and they haven't been able to meet it so far.
Mr. Speaker, over the past few weeks, this House has left no one in any doubt about what it does not want. Today, we need to send an emphatic message about what we do want.
2 weeks ago, MPs absolutely kicked out Theresa May's main plan, but there is a whiff of compromise in the air because key Remainers and key Brexiteers have been meeting secretly for about a week, where they have cooked up some kind of alternative compromise plan.
The Prime Minister rang me on Saturday morning and said, please come to Chequers for lunch. I thought, well, this is a surprise. And of course, everybody wants to go for lunch with the Prime Minister at Chequers. So Jacob Rees-Mogg and I, Nicky Morgan and Damien Green, 2 Remainers, went for lunch with the Prime Minister. She was very frank with us and sort of charged us to talk to each other and work something out.
We had a meeting with the Prime Minister where it was a delight to see Steve put our points with exquisite clarity and forthrightness.
Steve was very hard on the Prime Minister.
They weren't impolite, but gosh, they were clear. We haggled through what we could each accept. And from that, we came to an agreement.
This compromise, it's a bit of a political pressure valve. It's managed to get some Remainers and some Brexiteers around the same table for the first time ever, really, to come up with ways that might replace the backstop that so many people hate.
We will now seek to obtain legally binding changes to withdrawal agreement that deal with concerns on the backstop while guaranteeing no return to a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. There is limited appetite for such a change in the EU, and negotiating it will not be easy.
The ultra-Brexiteers are delighted. I mean, one of them messaged me tonight to say, if only she did as we asked straight away all the time, things would be much easier.
The Prime Minister has completely capitulated to the ERG, that people who tried to boot her out before Christmas, she now is bringing them in. Quite astonishing. Whereas people like me, we are not even invited in to number 10, and I think that shows you the drift in the Conservative Party.
As each day goes on, it's more and more obvious how thinly the elastic of all the main parties is being stretched.
7 Labour MPs have resigned from the party in protest at Jeremy Corbyn's approach to Brexit.
We've taken the first step in leaving the old tribal politics behind. Politics is broken. Fundamental change is needed.
3 Conservative MPs have resigned from the party today.
I've been elected 3 times, and I'm very grateful for the support of friends and family who enabled me to win. The hardline right wing are now running the Conservative Party from top to toe. They are the Conservative Party.
Our political parties have always been full of people who disagree, but they manage to keep the show on the road using loyalty and discipline. And Brexit has challenged that. So how do you keep a very different group of people marching the same way if fundamentally they feel differently in their guts about it? The whole thing is being pushed to breaking point.
The Prime Minister has left for Strasbourg this evening for unscheduled talks. Theresa May is hoping that the EU will give her enough assurances on the Brexit deal to convince MPs to back it in just 24 hours' time.
Which one of you blinked first?
This is everything for Theresa May. This next 30 hours is her last chance to stop MPs delaying Brexit. Here she is. They all look knackered. Aren't we all?
And what we have secured is very clearly that the backstop cannot become permanent. Now is the time to come together and to deliver on the instruction of the British people.
clever last gasp politics here. Brexiteers need to have a rubber stamp from Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, saying, yeah, it's fine, actually, legally it's changed the situation. If he doesn't do that, they won't move.
This is a really grave moment in our history. I mean, I think we all feel considerably burdened by the responsibility. The truth is, right now, most of us would love to vote for the deal and just stop this division and misery, because it is miserable now.
And here he is. Cox is up.
The legal risk, as I set it out in my letter of the 13th of November, remains unchanged.
Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, says that fundamentally the deal is still the same, which obviously makes it very, very hard for the Prime Minister to get the vote through tonight. So it is not the solution that she was hoping for. It seems a huge failure in sort of expectation management.
Geoffrey Cox has given an honest opinion, but it's an honest opinion that doesn't help the government's case. It's very hard to see any way that anybody who's the interests of the union at heart could vote for it as it stands. But I feel no disappointment, not anger, but disappointment that we find ourselves in this position.
I'm afraid nothing has changed again. We all wanted to be able to vote for the deal today. We're being asked to choose between Brexit in name only and the risk of no Brexit. It's an extremely hard decision for everybody. Because it once again means rebellion. We've had one or two colleagues have decided they're going to vote for it because they fear that if they don't vote for this, they'll get no Brexit at all. But I don't want to be forced to do what I think is wrong. So the right thing to do, I think, is to vote it down.
To the right, 242. The noes to the left, 391. So the noes have it, the noes have it.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I profoundly regret the decision that this House has taken tonight.
It's been a terrible day for Theresa May. I mean, she's even lost her voice. I mean, you couldn't make it up. She's come crashing down again to an enormous defeat, losing by nearly 150 votes. It's another proper kicking.
It is entirely feasible that the government will really lose control of the process.
MPs are probably going to vote to say we can't leave at the end of March. The Prime Minister did almost everything she possibly could to avoid a delay. She felt she had this sort of binding vow with the public that we would leave on the 29th of March. But there just are not enough people who are willing to swallow her deal at the moment. If you don't have votes and support as a Prime Minister, you don't have anything.
Order! Order!
Theresa May's deal has struggled to get through. So today, MPs have voted to give themselves control of Parliament to find a way through this.
The outcome should go back to the people for confirmation.
The suspicion, though, for Brexiteers is that most people in Parliament are trying to push the government to a softer Brexit.
If we support this motion, we can categorically rule out a no deal.
Inside the ERG at the moment, some of them, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, are clearly really eager to find a way to back this deal.
I think the choice is a very unpalatable one, but I'm not dealing with what I want, I'm dealing with what the reality is. And the reality seems to be her deal, or effectively not leaving. And not leaving is the worst possible result.
Theresa May has signalled that she will stand down if she wins support for her EU withdrawal deal.
Prime Minister said she'll quit if it means she gets her deal through, but it may have been a completely pointless sacrifice, because in the last 10 minutes, the DUP, whose support she also needs, have said, no, we're not going to back you. Without the DUP's votes, the deal isn't going through. That's a disaster for Theresa May.
I had a lengthy meeting this afternoon with the Prime Minister. We went over how we have reached this place, and I reminded her of the letters that we wrote outlining our concerns, our warnings about the backstop. That advice Those warnings were ignored. And I think today I saw a real sign of the Prime Minister's bitter regret at having ignored that.
If you want to deliver Brexit, this is the moment. If you're passionate about making sure that the United Kingdom leaves the European Union, back this motion.
The ayes to the right, 286. The noes to the left, 344.
So the noes have it. The noes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I fear we are reaching the limits of this process in this House. The implications of the House's decision are grave.
What annoys me is that it's the people who were so passionate about that referendum, they're the ones who killed it.
There's always going to be a brutal, psychological war of attrition to get us to vote for what we would never want to vote for ourselves. But I decided I'm just not surrendering. I'm never voting for this deal.
This whole thing has unleashed kind of political chaos. We're talking here in your office while Tommy Robinson is on a stage outside with hundreds of people frustrated about Brexit getting stuck like this. Do you accept now there's chaos and partly that's down to you?
I think, we've got a difficult argument to solve and to address. I don't think you should despair yet, Laura. It will come good in the end.
You've got Parliament saying no to your deal. You've got a Prime Minister who said that she's going to quit. At what point do you accept that it's done?
I think that my job is to help the Prime Minister in delivering on this withdrawal agreement.
I mean, it sounds deluded, doesn't it?
The thing that people forget is that the Conservative Party went to get a majority in order to deliver Brexit.
To avoid all of this
failed
mess.
to get a majority. The government as a whole probably should have just been clearer. The consequences of that, the parliamentary arithmetic would mean that this would be inevitably a kind of softer type of Brexit.
I've seen the official minutes of what actually happened at Chequers in the summer, where Theresa May rammed her first stab at real compromise through the cabinet. There are only about 40 copies of those minutes. And I've seen in black and white that minister after minister after minister had grave reservations about the kind of compromise which she was trying to do. It's not in line with our core promise. There has to be a clear plan B. Pretty much all the outcomes are unacceptable. These documents bring us full circle to where this whole journey began. And they show how much worry there was then about the potential impossibility of getting it done. It's 11:01 on the 29th of March, 2019. And Brexit just didn't happen. It really matters that we haven't left yet, because this place promised the public that's what we were going to do. Every actor in this drama bears some of the responsibility. Whether that's the Prime Minister for not wanting to listen to anyone else, or whether it's people in Parliament who've really wanted to cling on to their pure version of how the world should be, whatever side they're on. At the end of the day, this is one of the most complicated political projects that any government anywhere in the world has ever had to carry out. So the mess we're in is, in a funny way, not surprising if you look at all those elements on the table, but it still feels pretty shocking to live it. To quiz your knowledge of Brexit and explore the opportunities and consequences of leaving the EU, visit bbc.co.uk/BrexitStorm. Follow the links to the Open University.
Laura Kuenssberg and Katya Adler join Adam Fleming and Chris Mason for geeky gossip about Brexit from Westminster and Brussels. Brexit Cast on the BBC Sounds app you can download now.